Yeah, man. Peace, love, unity. That's what it's all about. Not war and destruction. What do you choose? Hello and welcome to the Friday Fantasy Show from the Bottled Imp, exploring the realms of fantasy. Hello, my name is Ken Boiter, yes, and today we're going to be looking at Wizards. And this is a film that's written, produced and directed by Ralph Bakshi. Ralph Bakshi. It's quite an easy word to pronounce, but clearly not. Ralph Bakshi. And he is responsible for the animation of Lord of the Rings, and that came after, and we have done a little review of that as well, so check that out. But I was intrigued. I wanted to know more about Ralph and his imagination and why he wanted to get into fantasy in the first place. This just might be a little bit of a clue. Wizards was released in 1977, so this isn't a new film by any stretch of the idea. And 1977, so that is what? That's 80, 90, 20. Yeah, it's over 30 years old. So let's see how it stands up watching it 30 years on, and also watching something out of context of the time that it was made. And I think that's quite an important thing to remember when you're watching something, the actual era that it was made in, what was going on politically, what was going on socially, because that does have an influence on people that create things, musicians, artists, writers. They're all influenced by what is going on around them at the time of when they're creating their art or their music. And especially with films, and I'm always fascinated by that, and I think this is a really good example of exactly influenced things that are happening around, sort of seeping into the filmmakers' ideas and the concept and ultimately what they're trying to say with their film. So the setup for Wizards is it's post-apocalyptic. Terrorists have blown up basically the Earth. They've blown up most of it. They set off a massive atomic bomb and it devastated the Earth, as you can imagine. It's radioactive, and then 2 million years later, it's, we have a little prologue and it tells you what happens. And basically, some humans survived, but most sort of mutated. It was damaging to our reproductive system, so they kept giving birth to mutants. So eventually, humans became less and less, and the mutants sort of, were the common sort of race, if you like. And so that is one side of what happened. Then there's another side which it doesn't really explain 100% how this happened, but I'm guessing it's magic, because it is a magical area or a magical land where it's very idyllic, it's very peaceful, and it's where the fairies and elves and dwarfs live. And there it's explained that they are actually the true ancestral beings of humans. So we developed from those races, is I think what they were trying to say. So that's an interesting concept in itself. And this land is called Montagar, and it's very peaceful, very loving. It's nature, there's nice streams that are clean, and there's fish. And that's a good comparison to the wastelands, the radioactive wastelands where all these mutants live. So that's kind of like the pre-setup. And then the story follows two brothers. There's a queen of fairies, magically it seems, gives birth to two brothers. One she names Avatar, and one she names Blackwolf. And one, Avatar, is good, represents good, and Blackwolf represents evil. And they have a bitter falling out as they grow up, and it's all about their vision of what the land should be like, and they fight over it. And what happens is Blackwolf kind of ultimately loses and disappears and says, "I'll be back," like that, like you would do, wouldn't you? And everyone thinks, "Oh, great, okay, there's going to be peace, and it's not, he's not going to be around to upset the apple cart." And so for a long time there's peace, but unbeknown to them, he is actually trying to search the wastelands for technology because obviously there's bits and pieces of history, there's unusual things that they find and they don't know what it is. So there's old record players, there's telephones, anything that's unusual, it's past. It's like, archaeology. And he thinks, maybe I can use this. I can win the war against Avatar by trying to somehow harness these technology into some sort of weapon. And what happens is he actually discovers film and projectors. And then he discovers old footage of basically Hitler and the Second World War. And so he discovers that, these are very frightening images. There's bombs being dropped. All these, in his view, is advanced technology, tanks, machine guns, ultimate weapons of destruction. And he likes the look of that, obviously. And he decides that, we can't find these things to actually use physically, but how about if we show our enemies just how terrifying we are? We'll trick them into thinking we've got these. So that is the main theme, really, is fear and the use of propaganda, and how that they can use that to actually influence people to actually going along with what they're trying to do and get control of those people. For then you shape their minds. If you bring them to your cause, you can then shape them and you kind of trick them into thinking that they're doing good. And ultimately you can then set them off to war against your enemies. And that's what he tries to do. And another thing that runs along there, so opposing that is nature versus technology. And what that means is that obviously nature is seen as the natural order of things. Things are natural, things grow, everything's ordered, everything's as it should be. And then you have technology, and in this case it's used for corruption, it's used for disasters, for destroying, for destruction, for destroying nature, for perverting nature. And that's a really good tension that manages, that Ralph Bakshi really gets across, that nature versus technology theme. And with technology, he tries to show that if you keep going with technology, you get further and further away of what a human is, and ultimately love. You get further away from love. You get alienated if you get too much technology. So it's going too extreme with technology. And I think that's a really fascinating topic to explore. Also in there, in a mix in there, is nature versus nurture. So again, you have two brothers which are from the same family and given the same care and love and attention. Yet one turns their back on all of that and one embraces. So again, it explores, why does that happen? It can't be just nurture. There must be something born, innate in you in order for you to become bitter and twisted. So that's a really good theme to explore. Now the animation is very bold because he mixes 3 different styles as far as I can tell, or maybe 4. He mixes hand-drawn animation, and this is pre-technology in terms of computer animation. So they're drawing on cells, everything's hand-drawn, plus live action film footage. So what he's done is various different battle scenes. He's actually put live footage from the Second World War in. And then he's also done rotoscoping, which is where you have live footage, but then you draw over that. So there's a mixture of live footage and actual animation. Plus, I did note that there was the difference between the backgrounds and the actual characters, the different styles of drawing. So the characters are kind of Disney-like, the cute. Some are cute, is polished, rounded, but then the backgrounds are full of texture and full of detail, and and sort of grimy and gritty. And I really like that. But for me, the juxtaposition of the clean kind of Disney-esque drawings overlaid, which didn't have as much detail, really kind of spoiled the backgrounds for me. I personally would have preferred it if it was just one style in that case. what did I think of the actual the live footage? I'm not so sure. To me, it detracted from the actual film because I was kind of a little bit, oh, okay, we've got live footage. Maybe if it wasn't of the Second World War, I know that's what it needed to be, but it just was, it was really strange seeing it in there. I preferred the rotoscope where it's just fully illustrated, but you kind of know that it's footage as well. And also, cropping up there, which was a total surprise, was Hitler. There's actual proper live film footage of Hitler, and he's addressing the people, and he's giving great speeches, but it's really weird. And then I was thinking, well, where's this film going? This is bizarre. But of course, that actually is meant to be representing pure evil. And also, again, if you're going to look at propaganda and fear-mongering, Hitler was the master of that. And so this evil wizard, Blackwolf, wants to emulate that. He wants to try and harness that power. So, of course, I can see why they've done that. And it's very clever. The characterizations, on the whole, they're pretty typical. They're pretty, one-dimensional. Although, saying that, the main good character, Avatar, he's a hippie. He's kind of hippie. And this is where I'm saying that the sort of Vietnam vibe comes in. The hippie movement is, full swing. But he's smoking, he's drinking. So it's kind of strange. He's meant to be a good character. And he's not your usual good hero. He actually does start layering, is that a word? Sort of staring at this main female character in a sexual way and innuendos, which I felt was a little bit out of place, considering that the director said he wanted to make a family film. That's very strange to have that kind of thing. Plus Hitler cropping up and the destruction and war and taking on these big sophisticated issues. I don't know if it's really a family film, and I'm absolutely fine with tackling this sort of stuff, but really for me it was an adult film, and I thought, okay, maybe it's 1977 and maybe this is kind of what goes for family films. But no, obviously you had Disney, you had various other family films that didn't tackle this type of subject matter. Plus there was a bit in the beginning where there's prostitutes, and they're clearly it's very clear that that's what they're selling. And it's like, well, hang on, family film? I don't get this. Now, I did watch a little documentary that's also on the DVD, and he is a very fascinating guy to watch when he's talking about his work. And he did say that he wanted to keep things real. He didn't want to dumb down. He didn't want to kind of what he called do a Disney, and make everything shiny and happy. And I understand that. But I don't know if this is quite the way to go about it. It was a little bit, too adult for me, maybe a bit too sophisticated, especially for a family film. But the DVD did say it's a PG, so hey, what do I know? Plus, it was a huge success. So obviously this family film, people weren't put off by that. It was made on $2 million. It actually made, or the total box office was $9 million. So it was very successful. It was doing great business, and it's now got a good cult following. So, to sum up, I would recommend watching it, if only from the point of view that it's a good experiment. He's putting new animation techniques in, he's trying to shake things up, he's trying to be creative. Overall, for me, the whole thing didn't quite hang together. I didn't emotionally engage with the characters enough. But I'm glad I watched it, because I felt like I kind of watched a bit of film history, and that's always great. And you can really sense all the social aspects of the 70s, all the political aspects coming into fantasy. And that's why one of the reasons why I love fantasy is you can talk about topical things of the day and maybe be more frank about it, because it's dressed up as fantasy, and people, there's one distance away from actually the hard truths of reality and life. So, yeah, I would check it out, but I wouldn't check it out if you've got any children, or not at least they're 14 or 15. There we go. That's Wizards. Wizards, written, produced and directed by Ralph Bakshi. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at pronouncing names. Anyway, Wizards, I hope you enjoyed that. What I will say is, this was made pre him doing Lord of the Rings animation, and you can definitely see the influence, his experience of making this film seep into Lord of the Rings, and I think the Lord of the Rings is a better film for it. It's a better film than this, So in a way, it was really fascinating to see a filmmaker's journey. I love doing that when you see them improve, learning from one film to the next. Hope you've enjoyed the review. We do lots of other reviews as well. We do fancy board games, fancy books, and also I did a writing fantasy series as well. Check us out on the Facebook and on the Twitter and obviously social media. And yeah, leave some comments, share and like everything we do, obviously. Until next time, remember, keep it unreal, especially if you're a wizard.